Hello, everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to Better Life discussion. I'm here with my good friend, Jussara Korngold, our co host and co founder of this podcast. And we are here to explore a very interesting theme today. But before we start, Jussara, how are you doing?
Hello, Marcia. How everyone? I'm doing really good, and I'm happy to be here back for our podcast and explore all those exciting subjects that we are talking about.
Very good. So, what we're going to do today, right? So, we begin with this question that can be quite old and young and large, but very quite intimate, right? Which is the series of topics about grief and loss in many different discussions. And my first question here, Josada, is why does it have to hurt so deeply? What does grief is, asking us? What are your thoughts?
Well, sometimes we forget about it, but grief is not just emotional. It's a full body physiological event,
Mhm.
because every time we feel that we are experiencing some responses from what we are experiencing, right? What is happening in the world or what is happening to us. Immediately it's going to trigger a physiological response as well. So it is going to be accompanied of a heartbeat that increases the blood pressure, that can increases as well. There is so much behind that.
Mhm.
And um, and sometimes, because those are not things that necessarily hurt, like a pain of, a broken finger or something. you know
Right.
it's so hard for people to know how to deal with that. And the responses are different as well, how much we can endure this emotional pain, this emotional struggle that is accompanied by the physiological event as well. It is going to depend on very much about our structure. The image that came to mind um, right now is, like, let's say that we are going to be experiencing an earthquake.
Yeah.
The different buildings are going to respond to the earthquake in a different way, depending on their structure, the material they were built. And I
Mhm.
think this is what we are trying to do here, is to improve our material so that we can deal and respond well and survive the earthquakes of life.
Oh, I love that image, right? From an architectural background, we know that areas prone to earthquakes, they are built, calculated different than those that are not. And so it's very interesting. It's not about the earthquake itself, but how are we equipped to better or not at all to respond to those events that happen. And I find it, just if I may, discuss a little bit longer on the emotional response to grief, right? And to me, what comes to my mind is that usually, but it's not truth all the time, but usually we imagine grief as something that I don't have to deal with it now, right? I'll deal with it later when I get old and maybe the people that were my friends start passing or my parents, etc. And it's almost as if sorrow, if you will, would require a timeline to which I can prepare, and we usually are not ready, right? To 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 come, but I must say I'm ready. You can happen now because now I am mature in years, in age, and uh, psychological maturity, etc., I'm ready to deal with grief. But grief, I guess, comes whenever we are attached to something, to someone, to an aspect of ourselves, or to life itself, right? So I think that the important aspect of it, and I'd love to hear a little bit from you, is to understand that the minute I start becoming emotionally attached, and I can be in the image of the little prince comes to my mind. The minute he gets emotionally attached, that little rose, right? He says, I've been captivated, which has a double entendre, if you will, because what is to be captive or captivated, right? He became imprisoned by the love of the rose. This is the case of the little prince. But we can expand that very simple, almost story for children, which is not, but with the idea here, how do we see ourselves as captivated by the love for something, someone? And when we do this, does it mean that I'm immediately vulnerable to the loss that that bond exists, right? How do I prepare to the risk that I don't own anything, but that I can lose something that I value so much? So, anyways, I digressed a little bit, but I just wanted to know, maybe you can speak a little bit about. And you mentioned, right, that grief is not just an emotional response, but it is beyond that physiological. Perhaps, Jussara, we can talk a little bit about, and we can reference Viktor Frankl, but it is some sort of rupture in a meaningful relationship. It is a fracture in the continuity of a relationship or an identity. So when we think about grieving as a moment when the world that I knew existed, that I was related to, I identified myself with, no longer exists. How do we manage that? What are the thoughts that you can talk maybe about the idea of the prism, which is today's topic, right? The prism that does not break light, but reveals the light in itself. And how does it exemplify the many aspects, the many facets of grief and loss, and perhaps the love that is revealed with that?
Okay, let's go in parts here because you
Yes.
have so many important and interesting things.
Hmm.
First of all, is we can prepare
Hmm.
for the moments of grief and loss, but it's never going to be like we prepare to. The experience per se is going to be different because as much as I can visualize, the
Hmm.
inevitable, I have, let's say, old parents. Of course, they are closer to their death than before, so we can start thinking about it, start preparing about it, but it doesn't mean that when it happens, uh, I'm going to have this uh, natural or sensible acceptance as I thought, just
Yeah.
because it was old age or something. Uh, it can come in a moment of my life that I can be much more fragile to the idea of, losing someone. And so as much as we want to prepare, and I'm a person that likes to prepare and to have strategies for everything. And it's something that I'm trying hard not to do, because we cannot control life as much as we can.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
control life, and I cannot control my emotions at the time life is going to bring me different experiences. So this is one thing. The other thing about, the Little Prince, again, life is made of choices for all of us.
Hmm.
And the question is, what is the price I am willing to pay for happiness, for love, for beauty, for companionship? Yes, there is the risk of losing all that. The Little Prince, so it's looking at, that the beauty of the rose, the companionship, right?
Yeah.
Envisioning the creation and being captivated by this. Of course, we can say, I'm not going to attach to anything, but to what price? So, having known love, having known valuable forms of attachment, let's say, in terms of, family, friend relationships, etc., we know that this is not going to last forever. And maybe it's not the others that are going to go. We are the ones that are going to go.
True.
We are the ones that may think about end a relationship, for instance, not necessarily thinking about death or dying, because in this series we are talking about the grief of death and the grief of loss in a
Yeah.
general way. So maybe I'm the one that, I am so happy in this work environment, but I will have a better opportunity, and I will lose my position,
Hmm.
those colleagues that I like to work so much. And I'm the one that is living. It is my choice as well. It's not necessarily the other. So the thing is, we know that we have to be open to life. And this is, in a very fickle way. This is how I shop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time if I go shopping, I say, "Oh, I'm going to use that a lot," because it's not. I refuse to buy anything to stay on the drawers, or a piece of cloth that is going to be hanged on the dresser. No, I mean, if you're going to acquire something, use it, enjoy it, and this is a different way of seeing life as well. But when we come to the prism, I mean, the idea that is interesting is because we are light. We come from light,
That's right.
from the love and breath of a creator. But when we go and experience life per se, through the series of lives that we will be having and opportunities, um, I'm going to look like I'm fragmented, because now I'm this color. I'm living this facet of the color:
Yeah.
yellow, green, orange, violet, red, and others that we cannot even see. But I'm not. I'm still, I am still the sum up of all those colors, although momentarily in my lifetime or in other lives experiences, I may be more focused on the childhood aspect, on the adolescent aspect, or
Mhm.
other aspects. But
Mm.
the beauty of that, and this is what we are going to be bringing in this series, is the convergence of all of this. When we are pure light of, becoming, of existing, and then having the full perspective, even with the colors that we do not see, of experiences that will bring us again to a whole. There is a single light composed of everything that from that speck I have been aggregating in my lives and experience. So in a moment is like, uh, how is the process for me to get there? How do I
Mhm.
know that that white light that is uh, going into the prism is going to transform in so many different shades of light, hues of light, right?
Yeah,
It encounters a block of, crystal, a crystal block, but it
yeah,
is what is going to show me this rupture, this obstacle, so to say. And this is when Jung talks about it as well. Joanna de Angelis talks about it. That moment where um, we will find the possibility of living and experiencing, and this sometimes represents a
yeah,
rupture in our way of being, a rupture that sometimes comes to pain, sometimes comes through challenges, and it comes in so many different aspects. So but what I think it's very beautiful is to think, I'm that spark that contains so much many colors, such a potential. And I have to experience all that. I have to grow in all that and become one in myself, which is still just a single being, but a single being that now has a different structure, because it realizes what you are. It has experienced things that will help you to become, or everything that your potential uh, awaits for you to awake. A little
oh,
poetic, too
no,
much.
no, no, this is quite poetic, but quite beautiful as well, right? The sense of the light, the fragmentation, but with the fragmentation that we could call the pain, the challenges, life itself, in this case, all the losses that we go through life, but it's the realization that we never cease to be the one single beam of light, but there's so much more that we are in how we perceive of ourselves, right? Is it a white light, or is it you mentioned yellow? It could be red, it could be purple, whatever the color may be, but we are not fragments of what we are. We are,
Yeah.
our essence is beautiful and quite amazing. So I love that. Yeah,
Marcia, I wanted, since we're talking about you being an architect, and the structures,
yeah,
the the earthquake, and
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
we talked about you having the structure to deal with the earthquakes of life. But
yeah,
what does that mean, this is structure? It doesn't mean to be rigid. It means to be malleable, to be open mind. And then
yeah,
I remember about Aesop's fable that talks about the oak and the reef. When
yes,
there
yeah,
is this, huge wind, okay, let's say that it's almost like an earthquake or a hurricane or whatever, and the might oak is removed from the ground while
yeah,
the reef is stay there. And then
yeah,
the oak asks the reef, why, I might, my structure is made of,
yeah,
of centuries, right? And you are just tiny. And then the answer comes, it's because we bend, because we are flexible, we're malleable to the winds of life. And this is why, how, all this spirituality means is not to put you in a case that it is there, is dogmatic. No, it's something that, invites you to be open to the truths of life. And there is truth in so many philosophies, religions, and places, and being able to be flexible. And like when you have to face this adversity, the wind, you will feel it. It will damage you. It will be hard, but you are going to be still standing.
Ah, love it. I love it. I really love it. You have no idea how poetic again, but that allegory, right, of what happens to through Aesop's fables of the oak, the mighty oak,
Mhm.
that hardwood and the little tiny reef that just bends, therefore is able to deal with adversity just because of its flexibility. Love it, love it.
And sometimes
Yeah,
the problem is that, society is not very open to that. It's not very nice to that.
mhm,
We live in a society that it's all about producing, is all
yeah,
about hiding your emotions,
yeah,
hiding your pain, and and judging. Like, I have a friend that she last year she lost her mother, and
mhm,
um, and and then she told me, it's been a year already, and I still grieve. And there are people, friends, that family that comes to me and say, it's been a year already. uh, and so there is no time frame for that, from how
yeah.
long are you going to be. uh,
No expiration date, right, for grief. It
yeah,
is an emotion.
it's an emotion. And sometimes, like, w- okay, if someone that died is, let's say, up to their 50s, it's okay for you to grieve because it was unexpected. But if, God forbid, if they are older, especially if they are over their 80s or 90s, people will look at you like, what
Yeah,
were you expecting? And,
yeah,
and I mean, this can be very, those can be the harsh winds that,
yes,
if you are not a riff, you
yeah,
can be very much damaged, affected by
absolutely.
those kind of comments, and become bitter, and having to withdraw from your
Yeah,
emotions,
yeah,
saying, I have to hide that because people will not understand.
yeah. I have to silence what I'm feeling when I need the most. But I think this is maybe the first point that we can talk a little bit about, which is the idea that grief, societally speaking, is often seen as a sign of weakness, right? But we all know that grief is deeply rooted in many, many different cultures. And, and for those that value control, productivity, or even emotion restraint, they consider grieving as, yes, you're weak, you're vulnerable, you should take medication to stop that. But it's not right. We really need to understand that it is a loving response, and it is not a flaw. It is an expression of how connected we are to that person, right?
Yeah, and you see, sometimes it can be vain. It doesn't matter,
Yeah,
because we live in a society that, everything is so easy to be replaced. We will say, oh, you lost your job, okay, just go find another
yeah,
job.
Yeah. Yeah.
As if it, the years that you had of experiencing life in that work environment, the same bus
Yeah.
that you take, or the same journey that you take every morning to go to this particular job, the coffee that you're used to have just there,
Yeah.
the little things. And people just so easily just say replace it.
Mhm.
Like sometimes, it can even be as vain as a cell phone, a mobile,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, just replace it. Yours was old but it was, you have such a consideration for that. It was your first cell phone, let's say, the first one that you bought with your money, not making
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
to pay. Oh, there might be reasons for you to be attached to that. We are not trying to justify here, vain attachment, like we were saying before, but how much we are entitled and allowed to have those emotions, to have those feelings. And there is no correct way or incorrectly way to live that. Each person will live that in a different way. Like we said at the beginning, even yourself, preparing yourself for loss, for death, when it happens, it's going to be different, because you're not at that moment where you are planning, how am I going to react
Sure.
when
Yeah.
this is going to happen. No,
Yeah.
you were in a different stage, you were in a different phase, you were in a different journey. um
And
Mercy.
and just sort of psychologically
Yeah.
speaking, right? Grief is not a just a point, a feeling, a time. It also has that constellation of emotions,
Mm,
right? Sadness, anger, fear, guilt, relief, confusion. So when you say, I'm doing it right because we all wanted to do it right, grieving right does not exist, or grieving wrong is not a concept that exists. Grieving is
mhm,
grieving. It is experiencing all the complexity of that emotional landscape, that it is who you are. It is based on what you are and how you establish that connection, that bond with whatever, and it will express differently.
mm.
Also, it's not linear, right, Shasada?
Yeah. And I mean, it is only human for us to try to fight it, try not
Yeah,
to accept it. It is not easy, or to go to those stages of this cannot be happening to me. I'm feeling
yeah,
angry, I'm feeling depressed, are bargaining, like we mentioned, uh,
yeah.
the opening of this series about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It can be so many things, but one of the things that normally we don't think about is that one of the things that we have considered by as a topic for medical studies as well is the post-traumatic growth. We
Hmm.
only talk about the post-traumatic syndrome when you go to wars or to some events. Uh, they are very hard for us to deal with it. But
Hmm.
we normally don't talk about the post-traumatic growth, not in with those terms, this
Hmm.
medical scientific terms anyway. When after we go through this rite of passage, so to say,
Hmm.
that can be so many things, right? That represents loss, a reason for us to grieve. We we become to have deeper empathy. We have a spiritual
True.
awakening,
Yeah.
clearer priorities, more authenticity, and it's not. We are not trying to say that grief is good, but it
Hmm.
rearranges what matters. I remember I live in New York, and I was here in New York City when there was the Twin Towers destruction, and it was very, very hard to go through that. But weeks after, maybe months after, I remember I was listening to one of those radio programs, and they were saying that there was an increase in the population, at least here, to look more for spirituality. And this was exactly the term the host of the show said, spirituality. So this is a post-traumatic growth, and the sense that I there has to be more to life than that. Okay, it is important if I lose my job, but at the same time, I cannot be defined and not just by the things I used to have and I don't have anymore. Sometimes we define ourselves as, I am the ex-vice president of a company. I am the ex-wife of someone or husband of someone. I am the ex-mother of someone. And no, we are not the ex of anyone. We still are. We still live that experience. It's those things or those people may not be in our lives anymore, but it doesn't mean that I'm just that. I'm just their reflection. And I think this is a very important point for us to think about as well.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And no, I mean, in this sense, one of the things that we picked to mention is, how in this process of bargaining, we try to revert the situation any way we can, and then we use this myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, right? And it's interesting because Orpheus in the myth, he was the greatest poet, singer, and lyre player. And that lived. And because of that, he managed to make his way around to go to descend into Hades, because his love, that was Eurydice, she died, and he wanted to bring her back. So he goes to Charon, the ferryman, and because of his poem, his music, and everything, the ferryman just takes him. And the three-headed dog, because of his music, is so marveled by everything and let him go through. And Hades is there and says, "Okay, you can take her back, but you cannot turn back." And in this case, it's when the myth invites us to think about, okay, he's there living Hades with his loved one, but not look at her until he reached the land of the living again. But the thing is, he cannot hear anything, any sign that may show that she's still alive and that she's there following him, that she really continues to exist. And so he cannot refrain himself from looking behind. And it was when she disappears. And I think what is very beautiful about that is for us to think about, sometimes for our loved ones, we would go to Hades and back, right? To bring them back, not knowing that they are still there. They still exist. I don't need to have proof of their existence to know that they are with me, to know that they still love me, because going through this process of, leaving our physical body behind and going ahead doesn't mean that we are over, and that love above all is going to be over. And so in his case, it's not necessarily a punishment, but it's him and the meat learning to reconcile with the existence, but at the same time, non existence, but understanding that she's there.
Hmm.
And that one day he's going to meet her, and then and not having this lack of faith, this human fragility
Yeah.
of thinking, no, there is not there. See.
Yeah, no, this is so inspiring, right? The to remind ourselves of this myth, storytelling, right? But it is quite powerful, Jussara, this notion of loss, the refusal, bargaining, right? In the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross curve, the bargaining, and he does bargain, and unlike us, if you were to bargain with God or whatever that may be, I want to go back. I want to go to the underworld. Orpheus was successful. He went, but in the foibles or the errors of his way, doing what he was told not to do, and he could not refrain from looking back. By looking back, he loses her forever, right? In the physicality of having her by his side, but gains the true notion of he will never lose her, which is quite a paradox of ideas, but it's the most comforting thing that we could ever think about it, that we never lose our loved ones,
Yeah, and you
right?
see here, he goes to a second loss. Just the
Mhm.
first, he goes to a second loss where he has to accept the
Yeah,
irreversibility of that loss.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's when he is invited to transform himself through grief. And in this case, let's say he had the proof that she still continues to exist,
yeah,
a different realm,
yeah,
right? And in a sense that she's not lost to him forever.
yeah,
Is just a momentary thing, and it was when we come with also the purpose of this focus that we are trying to give here is this rupture, this pain that you go through.
yeah,
It invites you to take a different path in your journey. And this different path may be one of and should be one of post-traumatic growth,
yeah,
in the
yeah,
sense where you say, sometimes I I don't give proper things their value because I'm so in the hustle bustle of day-to-day lives, and I'm not seeing what is truly good when you go through a, a difficult process. You may experience a heart attack or someone in your family
yeah,
and
yeah,
comes out of it, and your mind and heart should be
yeah,
different
yeah.
after this experience, and not uh, uh, not growing through that.
It's a refocus, right? He, in this case of Orpheus, the descent is like a grieving process, like dark and scary and all of it, but he comes back transformed. But I think in many different types of grieving processes, that positive post-traumatic growth is one that pushes us to see things in a different lens,
Mhm.
right? To re-evaluate or validate our relationship to that. But since we're talking about myths, can you talk about perhaps Demeter and Persephone, the myth, and how they talk about those different dimensions of grief?
Again, it's another myth that can help us to
Yeah,
understand this transition. So when Persephone dies, and it is so high, difficult for Demeter to accept that,
yeah,
and then from this perspective is already accepting that she lives in the underworld, and
yeah,
his grief becomes cosmic, like they say, gigantic, and it reflects on the earth because she was responsible for the crops, for the weather and everything,
yeah,
until finally when they accept and they realize their grief. There's a compromise where she is going to spend part of the year in the underground world,
yeah.
and part
Mhm.
of the year above the ground. And so it tries to explain to us that uh, we belong to two realms, and there is no rupture per se in what we are, just because we move to a different realm, and how we feel just because we move to a different realm. And we are going to be living in these two realms where in terms of grief per se, when we experience the loss of loved ones, let's say, or a friend,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. It's us thinking, um, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to feel this grief. It doesn't matter if it's 1 year, 5 months, 50 years. I love this person. I miss the company of this person. There is this grief word that I learned that I love so much. It's the potos, is the which is in Greek. It means the uh, missing, right? The absence of a presence, of being hurt, or right, by this absence of this presence that was there with us, that lived with us, as
Yeah.
pain of this absence of a presence. And it's okay. And this is what we have to think about. That will be days that we will wake up and say, I don't know why I've been, I mean, I feel like in thinking about this person so much today, right?
Yeah.
It's been so long in the way we count time, but nothing out for our emotions, in our spirit, and especially knowing that this someone in a different level continues to exist. And I think it's for us, it's a process for us to learn that, um, hope as well,
Mhm.
about hope, because it's not the end. It's not the end for them. It's not the end for us. It is a process where I will be invited to uh, mature,
Yeah.
and to the strengthening of my spiritual values as well.
That is quite beautiful what you're saying, right? It is a purposeful, if you will, not intentional by us, but there is a purpose. There's meaning into into the process.
Mhm.
Ah, so can we wrap up in the next few minutes with perhaps the idea of spiritist perspective, right? Which is reframing um, our lives, reframing pain, reframing our our like Eurydice, uh, where that we didn't disappear, right? We disappear physically, but we don't go. Can you tell us a little bit about what does Spiritism teach us about us, and what does Joanna de Angelis as well talk to us about that from a grieving process?
Yes, and from the works of on Spiritism, from Allan Kardec,
Yeah,
the spirits books and others, and of course from Joanna de Angelis. And I mean, that's the main reason why she keeps on inviting us to get to know ourselves, to strengthen ourselves, because it's just not for one existence, it's for eternal life, it's mortality. And,
yeah,
and it is in this perspective that we have to talk something here, and always remembering that 90% of the religions of the world, they preach immortality. Of
yeah,
course, they have different ideas of what is going to happen after you die, you're passed, but still you're immortal. And
yeah,
so from this perspective, I'm immortal. It means that I continue to exist, that I continue feeling the same feelings that I had before, and so I'm not eliminated. I should not be eradicated from your life just because my physical body does no longer exist. And so from the spiritist perspective, we are here just living a physical experience. It's like just,
hmm,
I'm taking a travel to, let's say, the North Pole. And so I
yeah,
will take the adequate uh, uh, wardrobe to so that I can endure this kind of weather that I'm going to be facing there. So coming to life is the same thing. I'm going to be dressed in a manner, let's say, with this physical body according to the needs of my experience. And one day, this body is no longer going to be functioning as it should. It's time for, to go through this physiological decay. And but we continue to exist, and this is the beauty. And we have been having so many research and validation about that in this country. We have the works of Ian Stephenson, we have the works of Dr. Brian West, right?
yeah,
We so many works, and even Dr. Deepak Chopra that talks about the immortality, that talks about reincarnation. Uh, okay, I lost people. I lost my parents already. Uh, I miss them.
hmm,
I wish they were with me, especially in difficult times and or very happy times that I would like to share with them. But although I miss the physicality of their embrace, I know that they are not they're not dead. I know that they continue being there, and I know that every now and then they come to visit me. Unfortunately, we still do not have a magical goggle that
yeah,
is going to allow us to see the spiritual realm. And don't think that this is fantastic.
yeah.
Mr. Dr. Louis Pasteur showed us a whole world that we were not seeing before the microscope, right? When we started
Yeah,
seeing those.
yeah,
And so, there is this world, there is this joy. And the take we should get from that is uh, be like the reef. Be more flexible to life, to what life brings you, to, you know, open your mind to spiritual values as well. Do not just be dazzled by what flashes before your eyes,
Yeah,
because I can guarantee to you that the flashing on the other side is so much more beautiful than we have here.
that's right. That's right. It's just a dull shadow of the reality of
Mm,
our true life, right? So I
yeah.
think I want to close with a question to you, Josada. What is grief actually asking of us?
Uh, to redirect our values, I think. I would say that for me, you see,
Hmm.
because in many instances, what we
Hmm.
lost, we sometimes were not valuing that much.
Yeah,
Just when you lose it, that you give it proper value, and now it can be too late. So
yeah,
take a good look at everything that you have in life right now, your health, your physical possibilities, your loving family, friends. Your work may not be the best, but whatever experience you are living, and don't take it for granted. Uh,
yeah.
count your blessings, because one day, if they're not there anymore, you may look back and say, I
I
should
w-
have looked at that a
yeah,
different way, from a different
I wish, right? I wish I had.
I
And
wish.
it's, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I just say for me, to answer the same question would be, ah, let us not bargain. Let's not do the Orpheus thing. We don't need to, right? Because loss is, like you said, it can be despite its trauma, there may be some post traumatic growth that are not only important but may be critical for us to reevaluate our entire lives,
Mm,
right? So maybe what I would like for all of us in as we close to reflect perhaps about what loss have you gone through and how going through that quote unquote underworld of grieving, what did it bring it to you? Not only maybe a loss of a loved one, a role, your health, a cycle of your life. What did it bring it to you? What is your new color in that prism, right? What is grief specifically asking you to grow into, right? I think those are the reflections that we can all have as we close this episode today. And I want to say thank you so much, Jussara. I really appreciate you, appreciate your thoughts and your contribution to this topic. I also want to thank each and every one of our listeners who are here today. Stay with us. We're going to have some more discussions on the broader aspect of grief from different angles, different lights, different colors. But for those of you who are watching this, listening to this program for the first time, please note the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are all based on the works of Joanna de Angelis, and we appreciate our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil, the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. For all of us, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Jusara.
bye. Until next time.